Good afternoon, everybody. It's your favorite aspiring revolutionary here, a wandering author, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same: spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. Today, we are in Wanamaker County, on the Wanamaker North Trail in South Carolina, on the north side of Charleston. And, spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. I think I already said that. Anyways, yesterday we were talking about Aristotle's views on liberality, kind of like generosity, but how people handle money, is particularly with giving and receiving money. And his, as always, for him, he puts virtues on a spectrum from positive to negative, with deficiency or excess, both extremes being undesirable. Today, we're going to switch topics and go back to the modes of persuasion, or how do we convince people of things. Now, if you remember, this is from Aristotle's book, different one, not the Nicomachean Ethics, but his book Rhetoric, which by many people has been called the most influential single work ever written on the art of persuasion. It's been used for a long time, so I think it's definitely worth taking a look at ourselves to see what it has to say. Thus far, we've gone over ethos, which is kind of like credibility. How much can your audience trust you, and different ways that you can demonstrate that, like through your reputation or social standing, examples of past works. We've also gone over logos, which is in the Bible, logos is used for the word, like the biblical word. For Aristotle, logos is the argument in and of itself, like the actual message in the words that you're speaking. And finally, we'll go over what by many has been called the most powerful of them, pathos. So, pathos is a Greek word that literally translates as suffering or experience. It's the root word for a bunch of different things, including the word pathetic. But in Stoicism, it refers to complaints of the soul. I've always likened it to the limbic system in the brain, which is where all of our emotional processing occurs. Right? So in terms of rhetoric, pathos refers to the emotional appeal of an argument. So whenever we're speaking about persuading someone, if we use the term pathos, we're referring to our argument's emotional appeal, which anyone who has any sales experience could tell you is a big deal. Find their hot button and just keep hammering on it. Hashtag eat, sleep, sale, right? Repeat. Metaphors, storytelling, passionate delivery, and personal anecdotes all enhance an argument's emotional appeal. So you could tell people a personal anecdote that you've gone through yourself, or one that you've heard from your friends. You can also change the tone of what you're delivering. There's a big difference between like the Bueller kind of office talk and actually passionately delivering a message. I can tell you from personal experience, I've known some people that were so convincing and authentic with their delivery on a message that you could have dropped them off in a neighborhood in nothing but underwear, and by the end of the day, they would have knocked on doors and gotten pants, a shirt, a pen, and a sale. All because of the way they talked, right? That's called pathos. So, metaphors, again, what I just did was kind of a metaphor, but on the other hand, oversaturating your speech with pathos, could be seen as manipulative. Like if you're inside somebody's house and you're talking to them about security, you're like, hey, if you don't get this, you're gonna be broken into. You're hammering a bit too heavy in your pathos, right? And if you are speaking with a perceptive audience, it's particularly noticeable. Hashtag guilt trip. Now, let's go to the philosophy of pathos. Again, in terms of rhetoric, it's your argument's emotional appeal. But this Greek term does carry deeper connotations than mere persuasion. So Stoics tried avoiding pathos at all costs, actually. That was the whole reason. Today, we kind of say someone is Stoic if they're unemotional, and that's not because they were not people who had emotions, but they tried not to be swayed by them. They tried to minimize the effect of pathos on their rationality. Referring to them as complaints of the soul, succumbing to pathos is an internal event consisting of an erroneous response to external impressions. Hashtag Buddhist AF. hold on one second, guys. But so far, I can tell you, South Carolina and North Carolina have both been way more like Florida than I was expecting them to be. Cypress swamps, palmettos, the bugs are pretty crazy. It's wet on and off. Dude, it's literally just like Florida. So, in Aristotle's Rhetoric, pathos is the third mode of persuasion and involved awakening emotions in an audience. And here's a good quote. The emotions are all those feelings that so change men as to affect their judgments. Rhetoric, Aristotle, book 3, or book 2. So, in particular, it's referring to the type of emotions that influence our judgments, what we decide to do, our volitions, as Aristotle would call it. He also says emotions have particular causes and effects, and that by learning what causes these emotions, and in the book Rhetoric, he goes into like a whole diorama of emotions, just like he does with virtues in the Nicomachean Ethics. And the reason why this is important, I don't want to lose you guys here, is it's like a manual. He's telling you how to reach to your audience, right? So his breakdown is incredibly detailed, and he goes through each emotion. So after this, I will start dissecting his whole persuasion manual, the book Rhetoric. I'll do a study on it. But for today, even if you can affect your audience's pathos, ethos is still required for you to be seen as credible. And that right there is also from the same people. He also ranks the importance of each emotion in terms of its persuasiveness in the book. And according to him, the introduction and conclusion are the best places to insert an emotional appeal. Hashtag closing. And I can tell you from personal experience that both as the listener and as the speaker, the beginning and closing statements made in any argument are always going to be the most impactful, right? So we must understand the audience's condition, which includes how they are feeling right now, who is your audience feeling these emotions for, and why, what is the motive, in order to truly utilize pathos as a tool in our kit of persuasiveness. So Aristotle declares pain aversion as the more powerful motivator over pleasure seeking, which is another thing that we trained on whenever I was in door knocking. If you are trying to convince somebody, it's way easier to convince them to avoid pain than to do something to gain pleasure. In addition to the nature of humanity's pain-pleasure-seeking dynamic, Aristotle reminds us that each person is a unique individual. So in order to effectively influence someone's pathos, we must understand social situations. Now, it's more or less all I've got for you guys today, so we'll end with this. Why does this matter? Well, if we understand pathos, what it is, and how it works for us, it can help us in literally any career. Pathos is heavily prevalent in politics, advertising, selling, and temperance. It could help you with your temperance, because if you understand pathos, then you won't be as susceptible to it, especially because we live in a world that is dynamic, and whether you want it to or not, the world will attempt to influence you. So you should be the one that influences it. Yeah. If I just keep talking, I'll be rambling at this point. Anyways, so we've gone over all three modes of persuasion. Logos, which is the argument in itself. Ethos, which is kind of your credibility. And then pathos, which is the emotional appeal of an argument. And the entire book, Rhetoric, written by Aristotle, tells us how to utilize these. And if we can master them, we'll be far more effective at persuading people to do things, or just in communication in general. And we'll also be more perceptive as an audience member whenever we are listening to someone who's trying to persuade us. So it's an important skill to at least be aware of, and you should be trying to cultivate those. Hashtag cultivating mastery. Anyways, this is Wandering Author here, reminding you that we are all the authors of our own lives. As always, my message remains the same. Spend less, live more, earn your freedom with frugality. What are you guys doing in order to inspire, uplift, and empower your community today? Because this world isn't changing unless we all do our part, and you can count on me to do mine daily. Until next time, I love y'all.